Are you your biggest fan or your biggest critic? And most of us, it's all negative stuff. It's that I'm dumb, I'm not qualified, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm a mess up, I'm a failure, I'm not attractive, I'm ugly, I'm whatever it is. It's just this negative stuff that goes on in our head. And what you say to yourself is 10 times more powerful than anything I say. So with people that we're trying to help, the first thing is we have to slow that down. We have to stop that.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Benj and Sailor Show. Today we have a special guest, Brandon Buck. He is the founder of Infinite Strengths, which was established in 2016. It's a professional coaching business. Is that how you would describe
leadership, development, coaching,
Okay.
Perfect.
Just making you become a better you. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And he's also a recent author of Distracted by Success, which Benj and I are both in the middle of reading. And so to introduce Brandon, I want to pull from his own book.
Perfect.
He talks in here in the chapter titled How to Discover Your Identity. He talked about some values that him and his wife wrote down and lived by and instill in their children. And so I'll read those for you so you guys get a better understanding of who Brandon is before we start. He is a person of faith. He's a person of integrity. He's courageous, he's responsible, he's persistent, and he's a person of action. Now those are some big things.
Pretty big things. Yeah,
that's a big intro, yeah. You gave me a good one there. You got a lot to live up to.
I thought of it last night.
Yeah, well, thanks for being on the show with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
I have enjoyed reading your book so far, and something that I thought was really cool was when you talked about your childhood.
Yep.
Talked about your dad's work ethic.
Yep.
My first question I have for you is what are some things that I would say happened to you as a child that kind of turned you into like who you are and who you're becoming?
Yeah, I mean, like what you'd mentioned in the book, I grew up on a small farm in southern Indiana, and when you think about farming, it's work, and you are the one that has to do it. It sounds great to have this big farm, but that just means there's more work that has to be done.
So like what kind of farming?
So I mean, we farmed corn and alfalfa and beans, and then we had cattle and horses and pigs. I mean, we had it all. And so my dad was just constantly working. He was up before the sun came up, and he didn't come home until the sun came down. And I don't ever remember him complaining. He just always worked. Like, he loved the work. And then when I was in the third grade, unfortunately, we lost that farm, and then we had to move. And my dad ended up starting his own business and started a construction business where he's running heavy machinery like backhoes and bulldozers. And then he started hauling stuff, so he had a trucking business as well. But when I was in that age, like I didn't know how scary it was. Now being 46 and being a dad and married, the thought of losing a job and being responsible to provide for my kids and my wife, like that's a pretty scary place to be, and we never felt that. It was just like, oh, we just moved and my dad started another business and he was providing. And at the same time, I never heard him complain, never heard him whine, never heard any of that. He just figured it out. And so that was just a huge impact in my life of like, okay, it's on me, regardless what it is. Like, I'm the one that can determine my success. I'm the one that gets to determine my future. I'm the one that will determine things around me. And that was a huge impact on my life.
So when you were making, you know how your dad, he went from being a farmer to being in construction. You were a teacher, and going from being a teacher to now starting your own professional coaching business. Did you ever talk to your dad about like what to do or rely on any of his advice?
I mean, we talk all the time. My family's very close, so we talk every week, and we're spread out all over the country. So we all talk. I mean, I'm in Boise, Idaho. I've got a brother in LA, a brother in Missouri. My sister's in Indiana, and my mom and dad are both still in Indiana as well. So we're spread out all over, but we talked a lot about that. But even going into it, I just always knew, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, I'll bet on myself. And betting on myself doesn't mean that I'm always going to win the race, but if I don't have confidence in myself to win, then no one else is going to.
Yeah.
And my wife and I really sat down and we just played out the worst case scenario of that. And the worst case scenario is we moved to Boise. I tried to start a business. It doesn't work. And we moved back to Arizona, where we moved from, where we have family and friends, and I could get a teaching job tomorrow if I wanted. And so our thought process is that if that's the worst thing that could happen, is we go back to doing what we were doing, living with our friends and family that we love, then why not take the risk?
Yeah. In my mind, sometimes I struggle with because we're starting this new business too.
Yep.
So there's a lot of fears. There's a lot of things that are new. We don't feel comfortable like at all. And with that, I try to think of like this worst case scenario too sometimes. Like, and by doing that, it just helps me to be like, at the end of the day, like, the worst thing that could happen for me is Benj or Emerald and I don't get to be together after we die, right? But I already know that Jesus has conquered all, and I believe in that. And so if the worst thing can't happen, then at the end of the day, everything will be okay.
Yeah, he overcame death. So like death's the worst thing. Then I think I can't remember who it was who said this. I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger at a conference I went to. He was like, the worst thing that could happen to you isn't death. It's not coming into your potential.
Yeah.
It's not being the best person you can be on earth.
Yeah, I've heard it like said that you're dead inside while you're still alive. Like
Yeah.
you stop dreaming, you stop living, you stop going after stuff, and you're just here.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, you started your coaching business. Did you start it with your wife, or did you start it and she helped, or how was that dynamic?
Yeah. So when I started Infinite Strength, she was actually working at our church and volunteering at our church.
Okay.
When we first moved up here, she actually went back to teaching. Just because starting a new business and rolling, like
Yeah.
you just don't know. And we've got 3 kids, and
teaching meaning like
she was teaching in high school at Boise High.
Okay.
So she actually went back to teaching math in high school. And so she went back to do that and then starting Infinite Strengths during that process. And then once we started to grow this, then she came on board and then runs like all the back end stuff, whether it's invoicing and emails and it's checking all that stuff. She's my editor as well. And
Wow.
so she does all those things and does my videos, and it's awesome. And we are an awesome team. Like, it's so much fun. I hope you guys have as much fun working together as my wife and I do, because it's really, really enjoyable. Like, we don't fight, we don't argue.
That's good.
Yeah, when you're starting a business, or you're running a team, leaders are always looking for people that are just as passionate about the vision or the company as you are or they are, and it's really hard to find. Well, there's no one more passionate than my wife or I about Infinite Strengths or what we're doing. So like, I don't ever have to worry about that. So are there mistakes? Absolutely. We both mess up and screw up all the time, but there's never evil intent or anything in it. It's just, we got going, we're so excited, and we just brain farted and forgot or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's super fun.
Okay.
That's the pro of being in a partnership with your spouse.
Yeah.
Is you know that like you guys are married, you're gonna be together,
Yeah.
and so the likelihood of them doing something that a different partner could possibly do, it won't happen.
Doesn't happen. But so we know where we're trying to go with this, and it just makes it so much fun. And we don't want to fight in the process. Like, we know where we're going, and we don't want to get there, and then all of a sudden then have to apologize for being jerks in the process.
Yeah.
And there's so many leaders and people that do that. They know where they're going. It's like, hey, we're going to do this thing. But then in the whole interim, in the work, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're stressed, they're angry, there's frustrations. And then they get there, and then they try to celebrate it, but yet you were a jerk through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it doesn't have as much meaning. So we know where we're going. We know there's going to be mess ups. There's no sense in me making a fool of myself, getting there, then have to apologize for being the fool.
Yeah, no, I
So,
see what you're saying.
yeah.
Well, and that's what I love about having a business with Benj is it's so much fun, and we both have the same, we constantly are just like talking about it. We're constantly like at dinner, like there's never a time when it's not on both of our minds. And with that too, it's a whole another level of accountability
Yep.
when you're in partnership with your spouse, because they know who you are and who you want to be.
Yep.
And they're going to hold you to that standard because they love you so much and they know you're supposed to be like that. That
Yep.
makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one thing Sailor's so good at. It's holding me accountable.
Good.
Like, she's amazing at it.
Yep.
But going back to what she was saying, like, yeah, when we're on dates, it's like our focus. You know, like, what do we need to be doing better? Like, what do we need to be pushing?
And it's fun. It's not like you have to talk. It's not like people that say like, I don't want to talk about work when we're at this other non-work event.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's so fun to talk about work and to talk about who we are becoming and where we're going, and it's just
Yeah, it's our life.
Yep.
I'm sure it is with you too.
Yep. It's 24/7,
yeah.
which is super good.
So you used to coach high school baseball
Yep.
too, right?
Yep.
Did that have anything to do with leading into the kind of business that you were wanting to start?
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's a huge part of that. When I started coaching, I loved it, fell in love with it, but at the same time, like, I wanted to win. I wanted to win. I wanted to win championships. I had aspirations of going on and coaching in college, and like that. That's what I wanted to do. And I thought to get there, you needed accolades and you needed titles and you needed all these things. And I got going through it. And my third year coaching, I had a really rough patch with some parents and some things that were really challenging, and a lot of stress for me and a lot of stress for my wife, and everybody was stressed out over it. And I got through that year, and my dad was telling me, like, hey, Brandon, like, what if you use this as an opportunity to get better? At first, I'm like, man, what are you talking about? Like, I'm the victim here. And then my wife said it a little bit later, and I started thinking on that. I'm like, no, they're right. If I don't figure out how to lead this effectively, I've got maybe one more year teaching, and then I'm done. That coincided with me reading a book called Season of Life by Jeffrey Marks. It's a book about a high school football program out of Maryland, and their whole focus is to develop boys to become morally sound men. Like that's why they coach, is that. And then football is like the little carrot to motivate people to do it. And they crush everyone, but most importantly, they develop men.
Yeah.
Like people bought into it. It's awesome. And so all of those things going on, I'm like, okay, this is why I'm supposed to coach. And I would have told you that I was doing that, and I did it okay early on, but I wasn't as consistent with it throughout my whole life. And I'm like, if this is why I'm coaching, this is it. And so the whole goal was to teach boys to become morally sound men. And that was our purpose. And I knew when we had 9 boys on that field trying to be better people, the season was awesome. I never had parent issues anymore. Our kids like loved one another. Then if we were any good at coaching the skill of the game, we would be really good. And we were. And so we were really good. We had awesome teams, awesome connections, still connect with most of the boys today. And then that transitioned into the classroom, and that's how I taught. And so when we moved to Boise, I knew I wanted to do something in leadership. Knew I wanted to just, man, like this is it. And we came up and started it, and now here we are.
So when you say started it, I know there's like so many things that go into starting your business, but maybe could you walk us through like a couple of maybe the first steps that you took that were just like killer? Like these are steps that like you go back now and you're like, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, good question. So one, I needed to know what we were going to do. Like if I was going to take you through a program, like what am I going to do? And so we got that intact. And we knew what we were going to do and take people through in our program. And then I sat back and I thought about, what am I really good at? And I'm really good at doing this, and I'm really good at public speaking. Like I'm really good at having coffees and one-on-one, and I'm really good at public speaking. So I knew if I could do those 2 things enough, I would eventually start getting clients. And so I just started setting up as many one-on-one meetings as I could each week. And I set the number at 10. The number of meetings I wanted to have was 10, and I wanted to speak publicly once a month. And so I just did that every single month. It was 10 people I'm talking to. It was speaking publicly once a month, and then 10 people. And then, they're not always brand new 10 people. It might be these 10, and then I'm following up with them again in a couple weeks and then follow up. But there was always 10 meetings. And then I started having business come in. And then I just continued to do that. And I still do that to this day. Those are the things that I still do really, really well. Because of time-wise, I don't have the time to meet with 10 people a week. It's usually between 3 and 4 right now, but I still meet with 3 to 4 brand new people every single week. I'm still speaking publicly because I know those are the things that I do really, really well. People have told me as soon as I started that, man, you need to do social media, you need to do this, you need to do this. I don't know how to do that. We're trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But if I had spent a lot of my time and energy attempting to figure out social media when we started Infinite Strengths, I don't think it would be around. I know what I'm good at. I want to do it really well, and then I want to figure out how to do the other stuff or bring people in that know how to do the social media stuff to help us grow that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there are some things in our business that we've kind of been like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Like for us, we're not going to edit.
Yep.
I don't know how to edit. Ben doesn't know how to edit. It's not something that we're good at in any way. And so we've totally like put that off on someone else because there are some times when you need to delegate to other people.
Yep.
So starting off, did you feel qualified to do what you were doing, first of all? Because sometimes we're doing stuff I don't necessarily feel qualified, but I want to be, and I just know we got to get started somewhere. So
Great question. I don't think any of us are qualified to start something new. You get promoted to a new position, you're not qualified for that position because you've never done that position. You're qualified for what you were doing, but not that one. But you also know you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I knew I've been coaching people for many, many years. A teacher and a coach for 15 some years. I've been around it, so I knew how to coach people and talk to people, and I knew I would figure the other stuff out as we went.
Yeah.
So
did you, when you started meeting with these people, of course, like I would assume at the beginning you did it for like free, right?
yeah, well, yeah, you'd sit and start and talking, and mostly every coffee meeting it was just me coaching.
Okay.
That's how I started.
But then how do you take that, a client who's been there and done, you giving it to them for free, and then be like, hey, do you want more? You should pay me. Like,
Yeah.
was that ever an awkward conversation?
It wasn't. Well, so when I first started, I tried to sell it.
Okay.
And when I tried to sell it, I didn't have any luck because no one wants to be sold anything. But the funny thing is every one of us, all three of us, everyone you know, they're all ready to buy right now. That's why Amazon is great. That's why they can put the flash ads up and you're like, oh my gosh, look at that.
Yeah.
And you'll buy. Like we're all ready to buy, but no one wants to be sold anything. And so as I started meeting, I wasn't landing any business and I was really struggling. So I started sitting back and focusing on, okay, am I meeting with enough people? All right, 10 people a week, that I feel that number's right. Am I meeting with the right people? Because I can be meeting with an amazing person, but they don't have the influence to make a decision for a company. They're just not the right person. So I've got to make sure I'm meeting with enough people, I'm meeting with the right people, and then that my messaging is on point. And so I always am reflecting on those three things: the number, the type of people, and then my messaging. Because if I'm not making sales, it's usually one of those three deals. And what I learned is when I just sat in and coached and brought value, man, my influence went up. Because if I sat down and I had coffee with you, whether I knew you or not, all I'm going to do is just listen. And I'm just going to ask you questions, and I'm going to make you think. My whole goal in that coffee meeting is to make you think. Because if you walk out of there thinking and just going, that was different, the chances of you sitting down and having coffee with me again are really high. And then I'm going to make you think again. Like I'm just going to listen. And I'm literally just going to coach and see how much value can I give you right now. And then we'll come back again. And by the third time, if you have shown me that you want to come listen to me talk for 3 times and have coffee with me, that's a lot of energy that you've given to the relationship.
Yeah.
That's telling me you want to go to another level. So then I'm going to put you in a group. I'm just going to say, hey, I've got a group coming up. Would love you to get in it. What do we need to do? And usually at that point, people are asking me to be a part of the group because I've coached them. As long as it's the right type of person and my messaging is on, then that usually leads to that. So.
Okay.
So when you were a coach, you read that book about the football team.
Yep.
What would you say some really big things that you learned that you could help your boys with to become better men?
One, like defining it. We've all sit back and we're all like, man, I want to be successful. I want to build trust, or
I want to be great.
Yeah, I want to be great, or I want to be a man. I want to be a woman. Well, that's awesome, but what is it? And so we defined it. And like the definition in there of who my wife and I are, like that's our definition for a morally sound person, are those 6 traits. And so that's just what we started preaching. Because yeah, you want to be it, but if you don't know what it is, then you don't know how to get it. And so we wanted to say, this is what we believe makes up a morally sound man or woman. And then now we're going to build a plan to get there.
Yeah.
So did you ever take each of your individual boys that you coached and sit them down like one-on-one and like help them individually?
Yeah, we not all of them, but yeah, we would sit down and
Some
have
of
a
them.
lot of them. Yeah,
Because
we'd
some of
have
them I would
talks.
assume would be like, hey, this is what I want to do, and then you'd sit down and you'd define it. Because everyone has different passions, right? And so I just would assume that that'd be something. You
Yeah,
do,
I mean,
'cause
there's
it's really
text
cool.
messages and talks and conversations, and like you just got to be very intentional on it. One thing that I think I did really well is I'm really good at surrounding myself with people that have similar values that I know will go and teach the same stuff. Like they know it, so then it's just not coming from me. It's coming from you. It's coming from Sailor. It's coming from over here. Everyone else is going to help me with that.
Yeah. I had another question. Oh, so how did you get good at public speaking?
Just talking. I talk a lot.
Well, everyone talks a lot.
Yeah, I talk a lot, and then I just started doing it. I will tell you, coaching and teaching helped me a ton because I'm having to be in front of a group of 35 kids and I've got to talk to them and I've got to keep their attention, or I've got to keep them moving. I got to keep them thinking for 35, 45 minutes, an hour and 15. And so for 15 years doing that 5-6 times a day, you start to figure some things out. coaching, same thing. You're up there, you got to be organized, you got to be dialed in, your talk has to be on point, and you're trying to keep kids organized and keep them moving. And so you're just speaking. I'm talking in front of groups a whole lot. And because of that, then people just naturally started putting me on a stage because I could speak. And then you just slowly start getting a little bit better. And then I would have people critique me and watch me and tell me what I did well and what they liked and what they didn't. So
are you a pretty big fan of John C. Maxwell?
Maxwell's like a legend.
I know.
Yeah.
I freaking love that man.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
I've been
he's a
listening to a lot of his podcasts recently. I haven't actually read any of his books, which I'm gonna have to do. But I listened to one with him with Ed Milet and John Maxwell, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was so good. There was one thing they talked about, how they called it the pause. Are you familiar with that? Do you try to apply that when you speak?
When you're speaking, yeah, you got to slow down. Like I have a tendency to just go. Like I have so much energy and I'm ready, like let's go, and I'm running. And so it is like I have to be very cognizant of it to slow down. If not, I'll run through a whole talk really, really quick.
Because you're just so excited.
Yeah.
Just like, I
Yeah.
want to get through this.
That's how I am too. Like I remember when I was younger, we'd have to give like talks in church, and I would just get up there and just like read my whole talk.
Head down,
as
not even
fast
look up
as I
once.
could, because I just get so nervous sometimes, and even in podcasts.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening, you probably already know this, but like I tend to really struggle to just slow down because then I get nervous or I forget what I'm talking about because I'm trying to think about stopping. So, but something I wanted to hit on is a lot of our audience are boys or men ages from like 16 to 25. That's kind of like our focus.
Yep.
And I feel like during that time, there's so many things in the world that are shouting at them to be this, be this, be this. If you have a boy that you coached or someone that you met that is just kind of like lost,
Yep.
like they don't know who they want to be, they don't know who they are, where would you start with them? What would you tell them to do?
Yeah. I would start asking first, like, what do they want to be known for? Would be my first question. Like, what type of person do you want to be known for? And we start there because they're going to say great things. I mean, I want to be a hardworking person. I want to be a loyal person. I want to be a caring person. I want to be dedicated. Okay, that's great. So let's start there. Well, then what do you need to start doing in order to be that person? Or what are you doing right now that is not that person? So we would start there. Then it would be into like, well, who do you look around and like, man, I like the way, Ben behaves. I like his character. Okay.
Yeah.
I like the way you do this. So who are people around that you like the way they are or who they are? Start hanging around them. Start getting around people like that. Because when you start getting around people like that, all of a sudden your identity starts to come out and you start to figure out different values and you're emulating things that I see you do or you do, and it becomes a much simpler process.
Yeah.
Because right now most kids, I won't say most, a lot of kids, they have no idea who they are. And so then that identity gets wrapped up in they just want to be liked. So then they'll do whatever with whomever, wherever, just so somebody likes them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely see that. Like, Benj and I have talked a lot about this, is that's one thing that we're not sure how we're going to do this, but we don't want our kids to look for others' approval. And we don't want them to be so focused on what other people think of them.
Yeah.
And that right there, Benj and I have talked about this so often. Like, that right there, I think is the number one thing that can be so detrimental to your life.
Yep.
Every decision is just the anxiety, the fear, the consciousness, just the amount of work that comes into trying to please everyone.
Yep.
It's crazy.
It's super hard. So we'll see how we're doing. I mean, my kids are getting a little bit older, but like coaching and parenting values, that's what my wife and I have started since our kids were like little bitty. Just letting them know like who they are, our family values, but then they see their mom and dad live it, and then they see us hold them accountable to that. And we still remind them like, hey, who are you? Like who? Because they're gymnasts and they're dancers and they're this, and even with all that work, it's still really easy to get wrapped up into that identity. And then you have teenage, friends and stuff, and peer pressure and everything else, and so it's just a constant thing right now, especially. But I think for all of us, it's always a constant.
So are you sending your kids to public school, private school?
Yeah,
how
they
are
go
they
to
being
public school.
educated? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how's that going?
Been super
They've
good.
been great.
Yeah.
What school do they go to?
Oh man, they've been like all over. But so we have 2 will be at LeBois middle school or junior high, whatever they call it. And then our oldest will be at Mountain View next year as a sophomore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many things on the internet now of people like homeschooling their kids or sending them to like a private tutor because of everything that's going on in the world, all the woke
Well,
stuff. So
it's something that you mentioned in your book when you ask most middle schoolers who they are, and some of them identify as cats and dogs.
Yep.
And that's my fear. It's just like, for me personally, when I was growing up, I was a huge follower.
Yep.
Like even to this day, I say I still struggle with a lot of that. And so I was always trying to impress people. And for me, like if you would have put me around a really bad crowd, I would have become bad. And yeah, that's our fear, is we just want to make sure our kids are strong. So they lead the crowd.
Yep.
So what would be some of your advice you'd have for parenting or even coaching to be able to help people be strong and figure out who they are?
Yeah. So one, like you guys start with the family values. Like you both need to know what they are and what you're teaching, and then you micromanage the crap out of that. I mean, we micromanage the crap out of and with our values, I mean, like we've defined them so they know what they are. Because saying you're a person of integrity, that sounds great, but what is that?
yeah.
And so for us, it's you do the right thing regardless who's watching. And so we pound that all the time, right? Hey, did you do the right thing? Sure did. Or if I see them at practice and they do the right thing when the coach isn't watching, I praise it. If they don't, I bring it up. If they mess up on their own, we talk about it. But at the same time, my wife and I, we attempt to do that all of the time so they see it, and then we intentionally teach it and coach it in everything that we're doing. The other thing that we do is we are very selective of who coaches our kids and who's around our kids, who's influencing our kids. We're very, very selective of that because we know what will happen. We all do that, not just our kids. It'll happen to you right now, and me. If I get around the wrong crowd, it won't be immediate, but eventually I'll start to become the average of that crowd.
Yeah.
So we're just very selective on who they're around. We make sure that the coaches and everybody knows, like, hey, this is what we want. Like, these are the kids we want. These are the values that we teach, and this is what we expect from you too. So I mean, I sit down with all of our kids' coaches, and I have that conversation. Like, I want you to know this is who we are trying to make our kid become. This, you are basically being another dad or a mom right now because of the amount of time that we're here. These are the expectations. And we make sure they know, and then we will hold them and ourselves accountable to the expectations. So we don't go in and talk to teachers and coaches about this move or what they're doing there or what they're doing there. But if they're not behaving to meet that standard, then it gets talked about.
That's what.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. Like, how do you manage your kids going to public schools if you were to go and talk to like all their teachers?
Right.
You know, obviously in elementary school, they only have one teacher. Right?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Our oldest is just now getting into high school, a sophomore now. But
So are you going to go around to all
no,
those teachers?
so at this point, we have a pretty good idea what classes she's in and who she's in there. And she's pretty confident in who she is.
Good.
And so at the same point, she's going to get out into the real world and not have all of that. So she's going to have to learn how to distinguish who are the types of people that she wants to surround herself with and who she's not. So now it's her going out and learning it and being able to grow from it. So still with mom and dad around if she needs it.
Yeah. So say there's like a friend that one of your kids has that you know is maybe not the best influence, but you also know if they're around your kid, that maybe your kid will help them. What advice would you give to someone in that situation?
Hang out at my house all day long.
So you're like the one that's like, hey, everyone come here.
Yeah.
You can have parties here.
Yeah, you can
totally
spend the
open.
night at my house.
Yeah, and be right here. Yeah, because it will be a good influence. And that's part of it, right? Our job is to help make people as good as they can be. And some kids are just born in difficult situations or whatever it is, or some are just in a rough patch. And hey, come over here and just be around in this setting. We're not even doing a ton of crazy stuff, but just be over here.
Yeah. Instead of wherever you are going to be.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to just veer the conversation really quick over to what your goals are now with Infinite Strengths.
Yep.
And for the audience listening, maybe if you could explain, like, what is your ideal company that you can help, or what is your ideal like individual that you could help?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One, the people that I look for helping are people that want to be helped. If they don't want to be helped, it doesn't matter. If they think they've got it all figured out, it doesn't really matter what I say or how I say it, it's not going to work. So I need people that know they're confident, like they know they're doing well, they're here, but they also know they don't know it all. Like those are the types of people I want to work with. I want to work with people that are that own it, with regards to like, man, I know it's on me. It's nobody else's fault. It's mine. I've got to figure this stuff out. So I look for companies and leaders that have initiative, people that want to be engaged. I look for people that are humble, people that are very confident in who they are, but they know they don't know it all. And I look for people and companies that take ownership that, hey, this is on us. We got to figure this out. And so that can go in a lot of different areas. But if they don't have that, I won't work with them, because it doesn't work out well.
Yeah.
So the type of person or company, it's that. People with initiative, people that are humble, and people that own it will do a lot of really great things. Goal for Infinite Strengths, we want to impact as many people as we can. At the same time, me not being consumed by the business.
Okay. So what does that mean?
So
Being consumed by
yeah,
business
so
for you?
like I don't want to, because right now a lot of my work, it's my time.
Yeah.
Well, I also have 3 kids, I have my wife, I have all this other stuff that I want to do. I don't want to be working with so many people that then I can't go enjoy my kids. I can't go enjoy my wife. I can't travel when I want, that type of stuff. So we want to grow this to be as big as it needs to be, to impact as many people as it can without me being consumed by it, where all I'm doing is just doing Infinite Strengths.
Yeah, not at the expense of you and your
No.
values and your relationships with
Exactly.
the people that matter most.
Yeah, there's some friends of mine that have built some companies and they loved it, and now they've grown it. All they try to do is grow, and now it's so big they don't have time to get their nails done. They don't have time to go on trips. They don't have time to do anything. They're just exhausted, and now they're consumed by their business.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to get there. Like, we're going to make this thing great, but great doesn't necessarily mean big.
I love that. Yeah, everyone needs to listen to that again. Great does not necessarily mean big, but again, it's what you want.
Yep.
And if that's what you want, then go after it, right?
Yeah, no issues. You want to go grow it to $400 million, $2 billion, go get it done.
Yeah.
So long as you're not sacrificing
Got those things in the
those
back
things
end.
that really matter. Yep.
Yeah, that's all it comes down to growing a business is you can make as much money as you want. You just have to pick your sacrifices.
Yep.
What are you willing to sacrifice in order to get where you want to go? And there are definitely some things in our lives that they're not for sale.
Yep.
You know, like we won't work on Sundays.
Yep.
We don't do that. That's
Awesome.
not for sale. And we go on 1 date a week. You know, I spend an hour of quality time with my daughter every day. Like there's just some things that we just will not, that are just non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Love it.
But is there anything else that you wanted to share or talk about before we end this?
I don't know, just things, obviously the book,
Okay.
Distracted by Success. Like, we're super pumped to buy it and excited to just the response that's come back from it. It's been a super fun process to create that thing. I was sharing with you all earlier, it was just a little bit at a time. And I think most people, when they think of a goal like writing a book or you all starting your business, we think about everything that needs to be done, and then we can be overwhelmed, and so then we don't even start.
Yeah.
But with that, I just focused on writing 30 minutes every day. Every morning, that was a focus. Some days I would get to 45 in the morning, but it was 30 minutes every day. And I started it in October. And because I was consistent with it, in 8 months, we had a book written, published, edited, and now out on the market.
So every day you sat down and you
Every
wrote
day I did
this.
it. Yeah.
There's not one day.
No, I didn't miss once.
Wow. Even when you were like on vacation?
When I traveled, I would get up because my kids sleep. So when they're sleeping and going, I get up really early. So I would go do it for 30 minutes. I knew I felt great about it, and then it was done, and we could keep going.
Well, what I love about that is such a great example of the kinds of things you want to instill in people that read this book.
Yeah.
Like you writing that book and you putting all those words on page is great, right? Like people will read it and they'll probably be inspired by that. But you showing the world and showing to yourself that's actually who you are is more important than even writing the book,
Yep.
right? Like you're practicing what you preach.
Yep.
That's
And
what I love about that.
it's a big thing I try to hold myself accountable to. Like, if I'm going to teach this, I better live it, or I feel like I'm a fraud.
Yeah.
And it happens. You know, humans fail and sin and all kinds of stuff, and I don't want to do that. If I'm telling you I'm going to do something, I will do it.
Yeah.
And practice what's in that, because if not, then I feel like there's no credibility behind it. Coming up again then in September, on September the 10th and the 11th, we have our Leadership Summit, which you got to come to last year.
Yeah. That was how I met you.
Yeah, so that'll be our third one, and we have some amazing speakers coming in to speak and present. And
We'll have to go to that.
It's super jazzed about it. So.
It was awesome.
Thanks.
I loved it. It was great.
So it's here in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, it's in Boise, Idaho,
Okay.
at the Stuckel Sky Center over at Boise State.
Okay.
And so with the full day, September the 11th is that's the Leadership Summit. The evening of the 10th, we do like a little VIP happy hour where people can get together and break bread and have a drink. And we have an amazing speaker that night. And it's like just creating some community so that then when we go in on the 11th, it's like, oh, hey, I saw you last night. And that we have a moment.
Yeah,
right?
no, that makes sense.
But.
So where can someone, if someone's interested in going, where do they
Yeah,
go
so they can
to?
just go to our website right now, which is infinitestrengths.com. It's just underneath the Leadership Conference. We'll have it on the main page here pretty soon, but it's just on our infinitestrengths.com website.
Okay, so is this for business owners? Like, who would you say should not come?
Oh, not come?
Yeah.
Oh, if you act like you know it all, don't show up.
Okay. So basically, pretty much, what, 70% of the world?
I think it's a little more than that. But.
Yeah, but if you are committed to being a better person and being surrounded by just like-minded individuals, we'd love to have you there.
Okay.
And we limit the room, so there's only 150 people that we let in. So we limit the size of it so it keeps it intimate and you realize that you're not just a number.
Yeah. So if anyone's listening and wants to go, don't think that you have to go if you aren't a business owner or you're not maybe you're at a 9-to-5 job and you're like, maybe I want to improve myself. I want to become better. I want to become a better manager.
Yep.
Go to this event. This event will help you. And I know Bench has gone before.
Yeah, I went. It was amazing. I mean, there was so many incredible speakers. You gave some really good talks. And there was this one activity we did with we had to defuse a bomb.
Yeah.
And it was cool because you sat at a table and everyone worked together to try to defuse this fake bomb.
Fake bomb. Yeah.
Right, but we weren't given exact clues.
Yeah.
And it was so cool because we had to think outside of the box. Anyways,
Well, and you were surrounded by people you didn't know, right?
No, I didn't know a single person at the table.
Yeah.
It was great. So I met all those people, and yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, you had to figure out how to work out.
I had to figure out how to work with people you've never met before.
I love it.
Yeah,
So it was
that's
great.
interesting.
So I kind of want to talk about something we mentioned a little bit in the podcast or earlier, and something you talk about in your book is really just figuring out who you are.
Yep.
Right. So you talked about, well, what would you ask them? You'd ask them, okay, well, what does that look like?
Yep.
But I want to dive into that more. If there's someone right now struggling in their life, and maybe I would say one thing they probably struggle with is just thinking. Like, have you ever read the book Outwitting the Devil?
I've not.
You haven't?
No.
You should read that one.
Okay.
It's a good one. But basically what it is it's Napoleon Hill who has a conversation with the devil.
Okay.
Right? And basically what the devil tells Napoleon Hill is like, my biggest competitors are people who think for themselves. That's it. Like, if someone can think for themselves, then they are already on top of me. Like, they have no threat over me. So what would you say are some things that you do in your coaching to help people gain the skill of, one, being able to think for yourself, and two, getting you to stop caring about what other people think?
Good. So when you look at all that, it really comes down to our confidence. If I'm confident in who I am as a person, it doesn't mean I won't make mistakes. It just means I messed up, that type of stuff. But we all start right there. And so we have them do I have them to answer these little questions, and they rate themselves of where they're at, and the max number you could get, you rate yourself out of a 5 in all these questions. So there's 20 questions, and if you put yourself at a 5 at all of them, then your average would be a 5. But I have them go through it, and most people's average comes in, and it's like at a 2.7, a 3, a 3.5. You'll get some 4s, 4.2, that type of stuff. And I just remind them that all of them are 5s. But what we do is we start thinking our way or talking our way down. It's like you guys do this podcast, and you might have 99 people say it's the best podcast they've ever heard, but then you're going to have that one critic that says this is awful, you guys should quit, what are you doing? And then where are you going to focus? On the 99 or on the 1?
Most likely the 1.
On the 1.
Yeah.
Okay. And so many of us do that. We screw up and we only think about the things that we've done bad or mess ups. We don't recall all the amazing, awesome things. And if you look at that, there's 99 people that said your podcast is awesome. There's 1 that says it wasn't. But yet we'll focus on this 1 instead of realizing how oh my gosh, like we're doing it. This is super cool. So we just sit back to that confidence piece. And so to raise our confidence, it's nothing that you can just wish for. I can't just say be confident.
Yeah.
In order to improve my confidence, I have to build and execute a better plan. So if you are on that scale, if you were a 2.7 or 3.0 or 3.2, whatever, like what we are currently doing, it's perfectly designed to give you a 3.2 confidence, or it's perfectly designed to give you what you're getting right now. So if I want to elevate my confidence, then I have to build and execute a better plan. Okay, so it sounds great, but then what do we do? And what I challenge people to do is it first starts with what you say to yourself. Like you talk to yourself more than anyone else. And then are you your biggest fan or your biggest critic? And most of us, it's all negative stuff. It's that I'm dumb, I'm not qualified, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm a mess up, I'm a failure, I'm not attractive, I'm ugly, I'm whatever it is. It's just this negative stuff that goes on in our head. And what you say to yourself is 10 times more powerful than anything I say. So with people that we're trying to help, the first thing is we have to slow that down. We have to stop that. And so stopping what we're saying to ourselves could be, man, we're going to start listening to more positive stuff, right? We're going to change the music we listen to. We're going to change what we put on our brain. We're going to change what we read. We're going to change who we follow. We're going to change who we hang out with. Like there's all those little things that we begin to change. So then we can start changing how we think, okay? The second thing we do is we just start challenging them about comparison. If you compare yourself to other people, you'll realize you don't compare. There's always someone bigger, faster, stronger. So what we get them to compare themselves to are their values or their standard. Okay, did you do what you said you're going to do today? Right? Did you not? Hey, you said you were here last week. Now look at where you're at. So we look at where we've come from, not the negative side of comparison.
Yeah.
And so many of us compare, right? I compare myself to John Maxwell. Good luck. You know, if we compare our looks to Chris Hemsworth, good luck. That guy's just better looking.
It's
right?
okay, Ben. I think you're good looking.
Right. But it's that part where that's what we do. But comparisons, we're only trying to find the negative all of the time. It's like if people compare Michael Jordan to LeBron.
Yeah.
You're not talking about how amazing Michael is and how amazing LeBron. No, you're trying to point out flaws in the other person.
Trying to bring the other one down.
You're trying to bring the other person down. I mean, imagine if I compared my kids to one another. That's not good. Thing I'll joke around with is, what if I compared my wife to my ex-girlfriends? Like, that's a horrible thing, right?
That's not going to go well.
It's not going to go well. But yet we do that internally all the time. We compare ourselves to other sales reps. We compare ourselves to other leaders. We compare ourselves to other athletes. And all of that stuff is negative. So once again, we have to sit back and we look to compare ourselves to our standard or my values. Like, how well did I live that? Stinking crushed it. Awesome. Now it elevates my confidence. That's all within my control. Okay, and then the third thing that we challenge them with is like keeping your personal commitments. Most people are pretty good with their professional commitments because there's accountability there.
Yeah.
But where they suffer is with themselves. Like people will sacrifice their health, their sleep, everything else to do everything for everyone else. But if you said that you were going to get up and go to the gym today and you did not, how do you feel about yourself?
Oh, I feel terrible.
Feel terrible.
You feel disgusting.
Yeah. And then here comes the negative talks. And then you show up and you see the person that you know did go to the gym, and then here comes comparisons, and now all of a sudden we drop from a 3.2 to what I mean, it just plummets. Okay, so we want to make sure that we start keeping our personal commitments, because when you go to the gym, how do you feel?
Oh, amazing.
Feel
yeah,
awesome.
I mean, motivating.
Right?
Ready to go.
You're ready to roll. And so all of a sudden now your positive talk is up, you're pumped, the comparison isn't there, whatever it is. And so if I'm going to help with someone, it's all on that. We have to elevate our confidence in those things, because if not, I'm going to take so many things personal. Now you come to coach me or critique me, and now it's an attack on who I am instead of just making me get better. I'm going to take that stuff personal.
Yeah.
But if I'm confident in who I am, then I can take it.
Yeah, and you're always going to have haters if you're doing something
Always.
good.
Yep.
So you have to know when to take criticism and apply that to your life, and when to just be like, I'm not taking hate from you.
Yep.
I don't need to take that, and especially from yourself. I love that you pointed that out. I think that is something that most young people don't do.
Yep.
They don't realize what they are saying to themselves.
Oh, not at all.
At all. And it's something that I've definitely had to work on. Like, there was a talk given in General Conference. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So there's a talk given, and one of the talks someone talked about protecting your private times. And it's just kind of, it was going off of what you said is some of the most important parts of your life is what you do when no one else is watching.
Yep.
And what you say to yourself when no one else can hear you.
Yep.
And that right there will determine and will affect your life more than you know. So if anyone is listening to this, write down some things that you know you need to fix in yourself. You know, there's some things that you know that maybe I tell myself that I'm ugly. I know I tell myself that I can't do X, Y, Z. Make sure you guys write that down and practice saying that every single day. Because that right there, I think would you say it would change their life if they did that?
Absolutely. Yep.
So I hope that if there's something from this podcast that you learned, I hope it's taking one of these things that either Ben or I have said or Brandon has said and applying it, because that right there is going to change your life. Like, it's great that you guys listen to the podcast, but if you don't change, then why are you listening, right? If you don't decide to do something today, why are you listening? So if you need something to change, focus on what you say about yourself.
Yeah, that was awesome, Sailor. It was really good. Yeah, everyone listen to that. That's really good. One more question.
Yep.
You said that last time.
Okay. Another question.
Sounds good.
Might spark another. What would you say the difference between gaining confidence, telling yourself good stuff, and just really being brutally honest with yourself? You know, because there's, like, if you are really, really out of shape and you don't feel good about yourself, it's hard to have confidence.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you can do to build confidence in that situation?
Go to the gym. Eat one less bite. Back to stop thinking and saying negative stuff. Stop comparing yourself, and keep your commitment.
What about the things you say to yourself? Like, if you are really obese, what do you say?
Well,
Like,
I mean, you are.
you say, I'm obese.
I mean, it is.
Be honest with yourself.
That doesn't mean that that's where you're going to stay.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to understand where you're at. You have to have that awareness, and it doesn't mean anything bad. It just is what it is. Now, what are you going to do to fix it? Mm-hmm. And you're not going to drop the weight tomorrow. It's just a little bit at a time. There's a book, Atomic Habits, by James Clear. If you guys have not read that book, it's outstanding. But he just talks about getting 1% better every day. And if you get 1% better every day for a year, at the end of that year, you'll be 37 times better than when you started, just by getting 1% better. So
crazy.
It's crazy. So just a person that's obese will get 1% better today. Get 1% healthier today than what you were yesterday. Maybe that's do one push-up. That's it. Okay, do one push-up again tomorrow. Like, you're better having to do one push-up than not do any. And then after a week or so, do 2 push-ups. Mm-hmm. And then after another week, do 3 push-ups. And you just slowly begin to do that. And by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better than when you started. Yeah. But so many of us don't think of it. They think about writing the whole book instead of just writing 30 minutes.
Yeah. And I think of actually the 1% rule a lot when I'm trying to focus on what I need to do to help my daughter. Yeah. Like, right now, I'm trying to teach her how to learn. Well, yes, but I'm trying to teach her how to talk. That's like my main focus, and also developing like who she is becoming and things. And so I'm constantly, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, if there's one thing that I know she learned today, what would it be? Okay, then I think I did a good job. Like, if there's one thing that I can teach her that for me makes such a difference, because I can get so overwhelmed thinking about, okay, like, she's supposed to be thinking about asking me questions. She doesn't know how to do that, or she should be talking in full sentences. Like, I can't. That, to me, that's like so crazy to even think about. But it's starting out like, okay, let's say dog. Okay, perfect. You said that. You tried. Great. That's
all you get. Yep.
Yeah, even if it's a nah.
Yeah. Like, okay, I know you tried. Okay,
So,
perfect. Well,
it's been such an honor having you on here, Brandon.
Thank you, guys.
I know I've learned a lot.
Awesome.
I'm definitely going to listen to this one a bunch more times. Mm-hmm. That's one of my favorite things to do, is listen to our podcast over anyone else's.
Yeah, you should. That's awesome. You guys gotta love what you're doing.
Yep,
Super cool.
Sure. And if, again, everyone, we'll include a link. I don't know how we're gonna do this. We haven't done this yet, but I will try to include a link in the podcast stuff, but it'll be a link to Distracted by Success, and hopefully maybe I'll get your guys' website, put it on there,
awesome.
See what I can do. But again, if you like how Brandon has talked, if you want to be any of those 6 things that he said at the very beginning, read this book. And in here, it's actually just not a book, but it's a workbook, which I didn't know that. And so this right there, I know that if you go through this book, and if you just start writing down and become more aware of who you are and where you want to be, you'll get better.
Awesome. Super
Thank you,
cool.
Brandon.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks for
Thank you
being
both
on,
very much.
Brandon.
Great job.
Appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely.